Virgo, you were standing there with the bucket of water already in your hands while they were playing with the matches. You remember the exact temperature of the evening air when you said it. You remember the exact cadence of their laughter when they dismissed you, the way their shoulder turned half an inch away from your voice, the way their eyes scanned the room for someone more agreeable to validate the disaster they were about to sign their name to. You remember the precise texture of the silence that followed your warning. Not the silence of consideration, the silence of dismissal, the silence of a door clicking shut while you were still standing in the doorway, holding the truth like a too heavy package they refused to accept. And now that package has exploded, not in your hands, in theirs. And the mess they started? The mess they swore was going to be their masterpiece, their liberation, their big, beautiful fuck you to every limitation they ever complained about. It is not what they want anymore. It is a cage. It is a fire they cannot extinguish. It is a machine they built with their own two hands, piece by piece, bolt by bolt, while you stood in the corner with the manual open, pointing at the page that said, "Do not tighten this screw or the whole engine will seize." They tightened it anyway. They looked you dead in the eye and tightened it until their knuckles went white. And now the engine is smoking. Now the walls are black with soot. Now they are sitting in the center of the wreckage, covered in the ash of their own brilliant idea, and the only thought in their head, the only clean thought left in all that smoke, is your face, your voice. The exact sentence you spoke that they called pessimistic, the exact warning they labeled as jealousy, as fear, as small-mindedness, as you just not understanding their vision. They are choking on that word now. Vision. It tastes like metal and regret. I want you to travel back with me to the moment before the first match was struck, not because I want to torture you, because the details matter. The architecture of their mistake is the map of your vindication, and you have been denied the right to see that map for too long. You were not being negative. You were reading the blueprint. You were seeing the load-bearing wall they were about to demolish because they wanted an open concept life, and they did not care what floor collapsed as long as the view was pretty from the couch. They wanted the applause. They wanted the rush. They wanted the narrative that painted them as the bold one, the brave one, the one who finally stopped playing it safe while everyone else, especially you, was too terrified to jump. That was the story they told themselves, that you were the anchor, that you were the weight, that your caution was not wisdom but cowardice, wearing a sensible hat. And because they needed you to be the villain of their leap, they stopped listening to the actual words coming out of your mouth. They heard only the tone they had already decided you owned. The tone of someone who never believed in them, but you did believe. That is the tragedy. You believed so deeply that you were willing to be hated for telling them the truth. That is a love they will spend the rest of their lives trying to understand, and they are only just beginning. Let me describe the mess, not vaguely, specifically, because you have been imagining it in broad strokes, and broad strokes do not do justice to the exquisite, detailed catastrophe they have constructed. They started something, a project, a relationship, an alliance, a public stance, a financial gamble, a creative endeavor, a physical move, a reinvention, and they started it from a place of hunger rather than nourishment. They were starving for validation. and instead of eating the food you offered, which was plain and required chewing, they reached for the bright poison that promised instant fullness. They partnered with someone who mirrored their delusion instead of challenging it. They signed papers without reading the fine print because the pen felt powerful in their hand. They burned a bridge that you told them carried their water supply. They spent money they did not have on a fantasy that looked good in the dark. They told secrets that were not theirs to tell. They made promises to audiences who did not love them, only loved the show. And they did all of this while you watched, your stomach in knots, your hands clenched under the table, your voice growing hoarse from the repeated, careful, increasingly desperate articulation of what was obviously going to happen. You were not watching a train wreck. You were watching a train being built without brakes on a track that ended at a cliff, and they were pouring champagne into the fuel tank while you screamed that liquid was flammable. The first few weeks, maybe even months, looked like success. That is the cruelest part. The mess always looks like success before it smells like smoke. They got the attention, they got the likes. They got the temporary rush of being the person in the room everyone was talking about. They stood in the center of the whirlwind they had summoned and called it destiny. They pointed at you from that center and said, "See, this is what happens when you stop listening to the doubters." You were recast as the doubter, the hater, the one who could not handle their glow. And because you loved them, or because you were bound to them by blood or history or obligation or a connection that transcends the simple labels of friendship or romance, you swallowed the recasting. You let them wear the hero costume while you accepted the role of the bitter voice in the background. You even started to question yourself. Maybe you were too cautious. Maybe you were projecting your own fear onto their brilliance. Maybe the problem was not their plan, but your inability to dream big enough. That is the gaslighting of the mess. It makes the witness doubt their own eyes. It makes the firefighter apologize for the water damage. But the cracks started. They always do. Not where everyone could see them at first. In the foundation. In the late night texts they stopped sending you because they knew you would ask the wrong questions. In the bills that started arriving with red borders. In the silence from the people who had been so loud in their praise at the beginning, now suddenly busy with their own lives, suddenly hard to reach, suddenly developing a convenient amnesia about the promises they made when the champagne was flowing. The partner they chose turned out to be exactly what you said they were. The opportunity revealed its hidden cost. The applause thinned out, the spotlight moved to the next act, and the mess, which had looked so manageable from the stage, revealed its true dimensions from backstage. It was not a mess, it was a swamp. It was quicksand dressed as solid ground, and they were standing in it, up to their knees, then their waist, then their chest, still trying to smile for the cameras, still trying to sell the narrative that everything was fine, that this was just a temporary adjustment period, that the haters would be proven wrong any day now, any day now, any day now. Then came the moment, the specific, unphotographable moment when the denial cracked. It probably happened in a bathroom. It usually does. A bathroom, a car parked in a driveway, a dark kitchen at 3 a.m. A moment when the mask was off and the audience was gone, and the only person in the room was the truth. They looked in the mirror and saw someone they did not recognize. Not because they had changed so much, but because they had finally stopped performing long enough to see who they had become. And what they saw was tired. What they saw was scared. What they saw was a person who had built a cathedral to their own ego and was now living in its drafty basement, alone, surrounded by unpaid invoices and unkept promises and a reputation that was starting to precede them in rooms they had not yet entered. In that moment, your voice came back to them, not as a memory, as a verdict. As the only voice in the entire chorus that had been singing the actual notes while everyone else was humming along to a tune that did not exist, your warning was not a prediction anymore. It was a recording playing in high fidelity inside their skull, and for the first time, they heard it without the distortion of their own defensiveness. They heard the love in it. They heard the cost of it. They heard the fact that you had been willing to be the unpopular one, the annoying one, the buzzkill, the nag, the one person in their life who valued their survival more than their applause. And the realization landed with the force of a physical blow. They had not only ignored you, they had sacrificed you on the altar of their own vanity. They had used your caution as a prop in their story of self-liberation. And now, in the silence of the bathroom or the car or the kitchen, they understood that the liberation was a prison, and the only person who had tried to hand them the key was you. Now, they want out. This is where the message becomes urgent. They want out, but they do not know how to exit without admitting that you were right. And admitting that you were right is, for their ego, a form of death more terrifying than the mess itself. So they are stuck. They are pacing inside the burning house they built, looking for a door that does not require them to walk past you with their tail between their legs. They are trying to find a graceful exit from a situation that has no grace left in it. They are negotiating with the mess, trying to reframe it, trying to sell it to themselves as a learning experience, a necessary chapter, a stepping stone. But the mess is not interested in being reframed. The mess is demanding payment. The creditors are real. The consequences are real. The people they burned are not forgetting the smell of the smoke. And every time they think they have found a way to back out quietly, to pivot, to rebrand, to disappear into a new narrative, they hit the same wall. The wall has your face on it, not because you built it, because you were the only one who showed them the architectural drawings before they started swinging the sledgehammer. I want you to understand the exact temperature of their panic right now. It is not the hot, dramatic panic of a movie climax. It is the cold, clammy panic of someone who has realized they are lost in a maze they designed, and the only person who knows the way out is the person they mocked for reading the map. They are not sleeping. They are eating poorly, if at all. Their body is keeping score in ways they cannot yet articulate. A tightness in the jaw that does not release. A ringing in the ears that gets louder when they think about calling you. A nausea that arrives every time they see something that reminds them of the beginning, the logo, the color scheme, the song that was playing when they signed the deal or made the post or cut the ribbon or said the yes that should have been a no. They are haunted by the ghost of their own confidence. And the ghost is wearing the clothes they wore the day they told you that you did not understand. The ghost is laughing the same laugh, and the laugh is echoing off the walls of the trap they built. Here is what they are going to do. Not might do, going to do. The timeline is already in motion. They are going to reach out to you, not today maybe, but soon, within days, maybe within hours. And they are going to reach out in a way that is carefully designed to avoid the central truth. They are going to test the waters. They are going to send a meme or ask a question they already know the answer to, or mention something casual about the weather or a shared memory that predates the mess, trying to reestablish the old frequency without acknowledging the rupture. They are going to be soft in a way they have not been in months. They are going to be tentative. They are going to be, if you can believe it, humble. But it will be a performance of humility, not the real thing. Because real humility would require them to say the words. Real humility would require them to kneel, metaphorically or literally, in the ash of their mistake and say, "You were right, I was wrong. I burned it all down because I needed to feel powerful, and you were the only one who saw the fire for what it was." They are not ready to say that yet. They may never be ready. But they are ready to start the conversation that might eventually lead to that confession. And they are hoping, praying in the dark, in the way that people who have exhausted their own cleverness finally pray, that you will meet them halfway, that you will make it easy, that you will say something like, "I knew you'd figure it out," or "It's not that bad," or "We all make mistakes." They are counting on your compassion to save them from the full weight of their own consequences. Do not give it to them. Not yet. Not in the way they want. I am not telling you to be cruel. I am not telling you to dance on the rubble or to send them a screenshot of your old warnings with a laughing emoji. I am telling you to let the mess be theirs. To let the ownership be absolute, to let them sit in the center of the destruction they authored until the lesson has time to crystallize into bone, into something permanent, into a change that will not dissolve the moment you make them feel better. You have been the only one trying to warn them, and that role has cost you. It has cost you sleep. It has cost you the illusion that your voice matters to the people you love. It has cost you the comfort of being the easy one, the supportive one, the cheerleader who asks no questions and claps at every pirouette. You have been exiled from the warmth of their approval because you refused to lie. And now that the lie has collapsed, they want to invite you back into the warmth as if nothing happened. As if your exile was just a misunderstanding. As if your warning was just a difference of opinion that time has now settled in your favor. Do not accept that reframing. Your warning was not an opinion. It was a sacrifice. You saw the future and you spoke it, knowing it would make you unpopular, knowing it would brand you as the enemy of their joy, knowing they would punish you for the crime of being correct. That is not a difference of opinion. That is a betrayal they committed against you, and the fact that they were betraying themselves at the same time does not erase your injury. When they contact you, and they will, the first thing you need to feel is not vindication, not satisfaction, not the sweet poisonous drip of "I told you so." The first thing you need to feel is your own exhaustion. You need to register, fully and without rushing past it, how tired you are, how much energy it took to stand in the truth while everyone else was dancing in the mirage, how much it cost you to keep your integrity when they were offering you the cheap currency of complicity, how lonely it was to be the only adult in a room full of people high on their own hype. Let yourself feel that exhaustion before you type a single word back. Let yourself feel the anger that has been sitting under your ribs like a stone, the anger you were not allowed to feel because you were too busy being the responsible one, the grounded one, the one who had to stay clear-headed while they were getting drunk on delusion. That anger is not toxic. It is information. It is your body telling you that your boundaries were violated, that your wisdom was mocked, that your love was treated as an obstacle rather than a gift. Honor the anger. Let it have its say before your compassion rushes in to smooth everything over. And when you do respond, if you choose to respond, let your words be few, let them be heavy, let them land like bricks, not feathers. They do not need your essay. They need your silence, punctuated by the occasional devastating truth. They need to feel the space between your sentences, the space where their excuses go to die. They need to reach for you and find that you are not as available as you used to be, that something in you has shifted, that the old you, the one who would drop everything to clean up their mess, who would absorb their panic and turn it into a plan, who would let them borrow your stability because they had squandered their own, that version of you has been upgraded. The new you is still kind. But the new you is not a volunteer fire department for arsonists who set their own fires. The new you recognizes that a warning ignored is a contract voided, and you are not obligated to rebuild what you already tried to save. There is a deeper layer here that I need to address, because it is the layer that will keep you awake if I do not name it, the fear that you have. The fear that if you do not help them, if you do not soften, if you do not rush in with the bucket of water the way you always have, you will lose them. That they will drift away again, this time into a mess you cannot see, and you will have failed them by being too hard, too distant, too vindictive. Let me release you from that fear. You cannot lose what was never truly yours to carry. Their mess was never your responsibility. Their consequences were never your homework. Your role was to warn, to witness, and to remain intact. You have done all three. If they choose, in their shame, to turn away from you again because you will not perform the emergency rescue they are too proud to ask for properly, then let them turn. That turn is not your failure. It is their continuation of the same pattern that built the mess in the first place. The refusal to face reality, the demand that the world rearrange itself to spare them discomfort, the belief that love means never having to say you were wrong. You are not the villain for requiring accountability. You are the boundary they need to bump up against if they are ever going to grow. But there is another possibility, one that is quieter and more beautiful than the drama of confrontation. The possibility that in the silence you give them, they finally hear themselves. That the space you refuse to fill with your usual rescue becomes the echo chamber where their own conscience speaks louder than their ego. That the absence of your easy forgiveness forces them to seek the harder, more durable forgiveness that only comes from genuinely understanding the cost of their actions. This is the miracle you have been praying for. Not the miracle of them saying sorry, but the miracle of them becoming someone who no longer needs to be warned. And that miracle cannot happen if you rush in too soon. It can only happen in the crucible of their own regret, heated by the knowledge that they destroyed something precious, their own credibility, their own peace, your unreserved trust, and that no one is going to hand them a replacement for free. I want to speak directly to the part of you that is already drafting the response. The part of you that is rehearsing how to be noble, how to be the bigger person, how to rise above and offer grace, because that is who you are. That is your brand. That is the identity you have worn since childhood. The fixer, the healer, the one who turns the other cheek until it is bruised purple. I am asking you, for the sake of your own soul, to let that draft sit in the folder, unsent, for at least 24 hours. Let the bigger person take a nap. Let the healer heal herself first. Let the cheek remain turned toward the wall while you decide if there is any cheek left to offer, or if they have already slapped both sides raw with their refusal to listen. You are not required to be the resolution of their story. You are allowed to be a cliffhanger. You are allowed to be a closed door. You are allowed to be the person who says, I am glad you are reaching out. I need some time to think about what I want my role in this to be. That sentence is a complete sentence. It is not cruelty. It is sovereignty. And here is what happens in your body when you finally choose sovereignty over salvage. Your shoulders drop. Not the drop of defeat, the drop of a weight you did not know you were still carrying. Your jaw unclenches. Your breath finds a lower home in your belly, a place it has not visited since the first day you realized they were not going to listen. Your sleep, which has been shallow and surveillant, waiting for the phone to ring with news of the next catastrophe, deepens into something restorative. You wake up not wondering if they are okay, but wondering what you want for breakfast. That shift from external vigilance to internal presence is the dividend of letting the mess belong to its rightful owner. It is the paycheck your nervous system has been owed for months of overtime. I also need to tell you that the mess is not over. They are going to try to drag you into the cleanup. They are going to frame it as a shared problem, a team effort, a we situation. We need to figure this out. We got in over our heads. We made a mistake. Listen for that pronoun. It is a trap. It is the linguistic equivalent of reaching across the table and putting their debt in your lap. There is no we. There is them and the mess they made, and you who tried to prevent it. If you allow the we to colonize your language, you will find yourself up at 2 a.m. negotiating with creditors you did not create, soothing egos you did not wound, repairing reputations you did not damage. Do not let the we in. Correct it gently but firmly. I am sorry you are going through this. I hope you find a solution. That is the boundary. That is the wall that keeps their flood from becoming your foundation failure. There is a future version of you that I can see clearly. She is standing on the other side of this. She is not hard. She is not bitter. She is not the kind of person who says, I told you so, at every opportunity because she no longer needs to. The need to say it comes from the wound of not being heard. Once the wound heals, the need evaporates. That future you is calm. She is compassionate from a distance. She wishes them well without needing to be the architect of that wellness. She has reclaimed the energy she spent on warnings and redirected it into her own garden, which is lush, which is blooming, which is full of things that grew because she finally had the water to give them. She looks back at this moment not with anger, but with the mild curiosity of someone who has survived a storm and can now appreciate the architecture of the shelter she built with her own two hands while everyone else was dancing in the rain. The road from here to there is short but steep. It requires you to do something that feels unnatural. It requires you to let them suffer the lesson, not because you are cruel, because you love them enough to let the lesson stick. Because a lesson rescued too early becomes a story with no ending, and stories with no endings always demand sequels. You do not want a sequel to this mess. You want a final chapter. You want them to close the book on this version of themselves, the version that confuses noise with power and performance with progress, and to open a new book where your warning is not a threat, but a memory of the last time they ever ignored wisdom when it was offered in love. So when the message comes, and it is coming, I feel it moving through the wires toward your screen like a heartbeat that has finally slowed enough to admit defeat. Do not rush. Do not perform. Do not resurrect the old you just because they are finally ready to meet her. Meet them as the new you, the you who knows her worth. The you who does not discount her own intelligence to make someone else feel better about their stupidity. The you who understands that the only thing more valuable than being right is being intact. And you are both. Let the mess burn where it stands. You already tried to put it out. You were the only one trying to warn them. Now let the ash be the fertilizer for whatever they decide to grow next. And if they grow something true, something tested, something humble, then maybe you will walk over and admire the garden. But not today. Today, you stand on the ridge with the wind in your hair, watching the smoke rise from a distance that you chose, a distance that is safe, a distance that is finally, after all this time, yours. You warned them, you witnessed, you survived, and now you are free to let the fire finish its work without you.